Church of Mabus. Into the light. That may be your fantasy. Metaphysical. The dark side.
Haunted houses, I like anything horror, genre, all of it. Oh yeah, me like it. You mean I could go mad?
I am the Lord.
Rocket.
I'm shaking.
The Church of Mabus.
I'm stoked. I'm ready. This is awesome.
Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday. It's 6:10 p.m. Central. Let me see. Let me get all my stuff out of the way. Of course, I forgot what I did with my stuff. Beazle was supposed to be here tonight, but he had to work. And then I talked to Blaze, who does our audio, and did the theme song and all that stuff. And he's also did our commercial and all that stuff. And he said he would sit in for Beazle, but he's not answering his phone, so I don't know what the hell is happening. Let me see. First off, a shout-out to our sponsor, QualityLiquorStore.com in San Diego, California. And you're listening to 107.7 New Orleans and 105.3 Henderson Point, Mississippi. So it's been an interesting week with the Ebola. It's getting pretty horror movie-ish out there. And then the scariest thing about it was seeing Rick Perry, Republican governor of Texas, in charge of it. That was terrifying. But now there are cases in, I believe, Hawaii. Where else? Washington. Possible case in Kentucky. It's just breaking out. And it seems like the people responding to it are complete idiots. So it's looking like we're going to have an Ebola Christmas by Christmas. It's looking pretty nightmarish. Hopefully they contain it all, but hopefully. And then, oh yeah, the United Nations came out and said they hope it doesn't go airborne. So hopefully it doesn't go airborne. That'd be pretty terrifying if it went airborne, for sure. That would be casualties in the millions, I would presume. But, well, I'm not sure where the heck my co-hosts are, so obviously Coyote Trickster is at it again, slapping me around a little bit. It's finally going to be 46 degrees in Florida come Monday. Thank God that summer's over, because I hate the summer, especially in Florida. I'm sure the summer would be more pleasant somewhere else, but in Florida it's not pleasant at all. But I'm going to get a dose of cool weather up here because I'm in the northern part of Florida, on the Georgia and Alabama border, so I get some cool weather. So by Monday, 46 degrees in the morning. I'm definitely looking forward to that, because when it gets hot here, it's like tropical. And then you have the mosquitoes that are infested with weird diseases that there are warnings about, encephalitis and malaria. So hopefully those all die from the frost when the frost hits, or it won't hit at 46, I don't think, but it will eventually when it drops lower than that. Well, we'll see if Blaze shows up. I left a message. What did Joe just say to me? Hey, Blaze. What is Joe saying? In queue with you now. Blaze is in queue with me now? He is? I don't hear him. Well, tonight's guest, Blaze, hopefully. Are you there, Blaze? I don't know. I don't hear anything. Tonight's guest is Denise Alvarado. Her book's The Voodoo Doll Spellbook, Compendium of Ancient and Contemporary Spells and Rituals. Joe's saying Blaze is here in the queue with us, but I don't hear Blaze. Are you there, Denise?
I am here.
Thank God you're here. I'm very glad you're here. I'm used to doing a show with my sidekicks. I'm by myself up here.
Well, I guess I'll be your sidekick then.
That sounds good. And they come in handy, because when I run out of stuff and freak out and don't know what to ask next, that's when my co-host kicks in. So,
I know how that is.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hopefully he'll be here. My Joe Montato's saying he's here, but he's not saying anything if he is here.
Well, isn't Mercury in retrograde now? So this is
just started. Yeah, it just started. Yeah, very close. So I guess that's. You see, I have this coyote chant that I do, and I got it out of a DJ Conway book, and it's trickster, shape changer, keep me from danger, cunning magician, show me your ways of magical fire, powers much higher, lead me to new life, brighten my days. And I've been saying it for a long time, and I think I say it too much. It's like my little superhero coyote chant. And I said it today for some reason.
I think maybe you called him forth.
It won't be the first time. I have some pretty weird stuff happen from that Conway. It's from a book by DJ Conway called Animal Magic. Well, I guess Denise, hopefully Blaze will mysteriously appear. Give us your origin story as far as getting on the path of voodoo.
Well, I was just born around it, and what can I say? I think every time I answer this question, it's a little bit different, because every time I think about it, I think of different things. You know, when you grow up in a certain way and a certain environment, you don't really think a whole lot about it because it's kind of all around you all the time. So once you start writing books and things, and then people start asking you questions about stuff, it makes you think about things differently. But for me, you know, I was always kind of born, well, I was definitely born with spirit, always having spirits around me. And there was one of my aunts who kind of recognized that, and she started teaching me about communicating with the spirits when I was really, really young, probably around 5 or 6, using candles. So it was basic seance. You know, she's really the one who put it in a formalized context for me, that this was actually something that you could, it was relationships that could be built with these spirits. And it's a very useful skill to have, to learn how to communicate with them, to figure out a way to control it instead of having it. Sometimes I felt kind of out of control with it, you know, because they were around me so much. But once I learned some specific ways of calling them forth and then putting them back, so to speak,
Yeah.
that was very helpful to do that. But so I, when I was really young, I was already placed in that context with them, and just growing up, I always just had an affinity for it. And not everybody in my family did. I mean, my brothers could care less about, paranormal stuff or voodoo or, magic. But I always had just this attraction for it. And I can't tell you really why. Just like I said, I, was born with spirit, and so that was the path I think that I was given, and I chose to continue on that path.
So did you
a
have
lot of people have been. Go ahead.
Did you have like paranormal experiences or see spirits and things like that when you were a kid, or?
Yeah, I did. I did a lot, and some of it was pretty frightening. I had a lot of battles quite a bit when I was young with demonic kinds of spirits, or lower level spirits is what I have come to know them as now. But, learning to, I think when you're born, when the veil is like really, really thin between you and the spirit world, if you don't understand that whole world, because it is a whole different, place, any spirits can come in and out of your life, as you know. Those spirits are just opportunistic, and they will come and just wreak havoc if they can. And so, we have to learn how to filter those spirits, and that was something I had to learn to do, because I certainly saw a lot of, like I said, frightening types of spirits that used to come in, especially in my dreams. They would try to, like, pull me in, and it was always this struggle. But I had helper spirits that would help me, stay grounded. And so, yeah, I was always watched over by an older spirit that I, come to know was Papa Legba ever since I was really young. So
Are you there, Blaze?
Yeah, so this is a live line, I take it, huh?
Okay, our co-host is here. Thank goodness.
Yeah, well, it's 4:21 here, and I thought it was going to be 5 my time and 7 yours. So were we off on our time frames?
It's 6 Central here. That's when the show starts. Did you say it was 4:20 over there, because it's 4:20 over here?
No, it's 4:21. It was 4:20 a minute ago.
Oh, well,
it's 4:21
that
right
fleeting moment just passed us.
Yeah, unfortunately, we missed that one. But no, I apologize. I thought, like I said, I was going for the 7 Eastern, not 7.
It happens. Well, we just heard Denise's the origin story and some paranormal activity in her younger years. Do you have a question for her, Blaze?
No, I did hear like the last 3 or 4 minutes. I didn't want to say anything because she was in mid-thought. But yeah, when you're young like that, it's hard to tell the difference between imagination and knowing whether a spirit or something like that is real or not. It takes a while to discern what the difference between the two. So it's always a challenge when you're young and creative. I'm a musician, so I know that experience of, having that experience like, is that a real experience or is that an imagined one? So.
Right. Well, I always felt that they were real, and I think that particular, aspect of knowing that made it particularly frightening at times, especially when they were the lower level darker spirits who tried to.
Yeah, I was explaining once to. Yeah, I was explaining once to a friend. We were talking about a particular artist we'd been listening to, and there's one particular recording that this guitar player put a recording out on, and had a lot of backwards masking on it, backwards recording on it. And I remember having a bad experience as a teenager, just laying in bed listening to it, because it drew something that I thought was negative into the room. Even though it was nothing that I could feel, I had to get up and shut off the music, So those are experiences that you have when you're young. It's like, you know, why did I have that experience? You know, what caused fear? What caused such great fear when there was nothing obvious there that I could see? You know, but it spooked me enough to make me know that it was real or it felt real. So.
Well, I don't know if you're aware of this, Denise, but the reason I'm doing this show on metaphysical and paranormal is because I had a lot of weird stuff happen to me in my younger years. Just to briefly summarize, when I was 17, I had testicular cancer and I had to go through chemo, and that's when I found the universe, so to speak. I prayed to. I was in the comic books and Anne Rice books, and I prayed to be healed and to be a superhero at 17. I was dying. It had spread to my stomach and lungs, and I went through chemo, and I was healed. And several years later, my dad passed away, and I started reading a lot of books on spirituality and the occult, anything I could get my hands on, shamanism, the druidism, the just anything, like Dr. Frankenstein to some degree. I just wanted to know what the hell was happening to me and why so much death. You know, I went through that, and then my dad passed, and then I went through a divorce. But shortly after that, in Georgia, I began to have UFO sightings with multiple witnesses, family, friends, neighbors, and during that time period, I saw different sorts of beings. And some of those beings were light beings, what in shamanism they call the luminous ones. And another type of the beings were what I call the serpentines. They were almost like snake people, but really weird. And I had a lot of experiences, and I just didn't understand why that was all happening to me. It was definitely a shamanic death of sorts. But as far as I think on some level that it led me to do the radio show and to raise awareness about, you know, that there's more to it than just Earth life. There's a lot more to it. And as far as seeing those beings, psychologically, I think I'm still getting over it. But,
well, that's the kind of thing that affects you.
Go ahead.
Those kinds of experiences affect you for the rest of your life. I mean, you know, they certainly color the way you see the world and the way you experience the world. Once that door's been open, you know, you can't shut that door and act like it never happened or that these things don't exist. So, yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, I've kind of embraced it while running from it at the same time. Through various methods and ways.
It's unusual to face that when you're young, when you're that young, to face your own mortality and that serious of a disease. It kind of shifts your perception of when most people are worried about just having fun and goofing off. You know, you dealt with some pretty heavy issues at such a young age. So.
Right.
So I guess, Denise, going into your voodoo doll spellbook, what can you tell us about voodoo dolls and how that fits into voodoo and what got you interested in the doll aspect of it?
Well, someone in my family, and I was so young I can't even remember who it was, but it must have been my aunt or my mom. It had to be one of the two, but they gave me a voodoo doll. And I kept the same voodoo doll it was a very crude one. It was just a bear, sticks and moss doll. It wasn't even wrapped with fabric or anything. It was just the Spanish moss wrapped around it and everything. And I kept it with my little box of magic things that I had when I was a kid. And I used to keep this little box slid underneath my chest of drawers, and I'd pull it out and, you know, check things out every now and again, and that's where I kept that particular doll. It stayed there forever. I mean, I didn't do anything with it until I was in the 4th grade, which that's really young, but still, from the time I got it till I was in the 4th grade, that was like seemed like forever. But I never thought, to be honest with you, that I'd ever end up like being a doll worker or a doll maker at all. That was not in something that I would have anticipated at all. it just happened. I quit a job that I had been doing for quite some time, and I was working as a therapist, and I ended up hurting my back, and so I ended up quitting, and I was in grad school at the time, and I needed to make some money to pay for my tuition, so I made some dolls of Papa Legba, actually, to sell on eBay, and it just took off from there. Oh my God, talk about a door opening. I had no idea. I was just doing whatever at the time, and like I said, Papa Legba's been with me since I was little, and that was something that he just kind of suggested that I try, and I did, and well, you know, here I am years later, having written books about it, and pretty well known for the dolls that I make. But,
were those your dolls or the pictures you sent me?
Yes, except for the wooden one. The wooden one is an African fetish. It's one that's used in puberty rites for young boys in Africa. I can't tell you how it was used. It's one that I got in my collection. I do know that that's what it's for.
So what's the skull one? They all look great, but the skull one, is there a story behind the one that's the skeleton and the hat? Isn't that some Baron? I've had some guests on about voodoo, but I mean, I have books and stuff, but I'm definitely no expert. You definitely know a ton more than I do, for sure. But I know there's one with the skeleton face and all that. What's the story behind that? Is that the Baron? I can't say his name. I'm from Georgia.
Yeah, Baron Samedi.
Yeah,
Baron Samedi. Yeah, that's him. That's him. He's one of my more popular ones that people order from me. Yeah, he's the spirit of death.
You still sell those? I might have to. That one was really cool looking for sure.
Yeah, he's pretty awesome. Yeah, he's the spirit of death. He's a guardian of the dead, the cemeteries, and he's quite the character. He's a head of the family of Lawaz called the Gede, which are the dead, and they're pretty raucous and fun-loving, very crude and crass in how they talk and their demeanors, very sexual, but also very loving and very powerful in terms of magic, and it's up to him in terms of whether or not somebody passes over to the other side. And he's got the power to determine whether or not the darkest of magic really can be reversed or not. So he's
is he kind of like the trickster of voodoo?
No, I don't see him that way. I've heard other people insinuate that, but no, he's that's more Legba's domain of being a trickster.
Who's that?
But Papa Legba, he's the guardian of the spirit world. He's the one who holds the keys to open the doors between the world of mundane and the world of spirit.
Is that Papa Legba? You said why do they call Saint Peter? Why the Christian reference to him? Is that I'm looking at Kenaz's book, New Orleans Voodoo Handbook. I've had him on, but I have your book and his here, and I was just reading them before the show to, get my brain in the right tune. And it says Saint Peter, Papa Legba. So is he a Christian character as well? Figure, I mean?
No, he's not at all. Papa Legba is an African spirit. Always has been, always will be. St. Peter became associated with him through the imposition of Catholicism on the slaves. There was black codes that were imposed in the South, and in Louisiana there's the Louisiana Black Code, and that made every other religion other than Catholicism illegal. And the first order of business in the Louisiana Black Code was the expulsion of the Jews from the colony. And then the next order of business was how to, certain guidelines for treating slaves and for slave owners and things like that. But the real gist behind the Black Codes was still controlling slaves and people of African and any descent really at that point, because it applied to any religion. So nobody could practice any other religion other than Catholicism at that time. So what happened was, because of the way Catholicism is set up with the saints as intermediaries between God and people, it's very similar to the way the Voodoo religion is set up, because there's the Loas, who are also, they're the spirits who act as intermediaries between God, which is a distant creator in the Voodoo cosmology, and people. So Africans were already used to working with, praying to, worshiping, serving is a better word, the Loas for their daily needs. And just like Catholics, I was raised Catholic too. So if if there's something that you needed, you can pray to a saint, and the saint brings those prayers to God for you. So the same thing works with Voodoo. If you need something for, your daily life, whatever the issue is, that's what the Loas are for. So it wasn't a stretch for them to adopt that, that religion of Catholicism. But the thing is, they didn't adopt it in the way that it appeared. What happened was Catholicism served to cloak Voodoo. So they found that there were some very close similarities on the surface only, but it was enough to where they could use those saints as stand-ins for the African gods. So St. Peter, he's a saint who holds the keys to the gates of heaven. Well, Papa Legba, he's the one who holds the keys to the spirit world. So that was a logical association. And that whole process of associating saints with the African gods is called syncretism. There is a misconception that the spirits that the saints were substituted for the Loas, or that they are one and the same, but they never were. Africans were never confused as to who they were praying to. It was always Papa Legba. And then over time, I think they began to have relationships with the saints as well, enough to the point to where, and because they never were enmeshed in terms of any confusion as to their identities being one and the same, they were always separate identities. But publicly, it was the Catholicism that was displayed. Secretly, it was the Voodoo. And then over time, like I said, the relationships were developed with the saints, and so now those saints are, embraced and accepted as part of the Voodoo pantheon. In terms of, I'm talking about New Orleans Voodoo. I should clarify that. I'm not talking about any other kind of Voodoo. My experiences with New Orleans Voodoo.
Blaze, you have anything to add?
Okay.
No, I was
That's
just
kinda how
picturing
that
what
works.
she was saying. I thought that was sound like New Orleans area where the Catholicism was veiled along with the Voodoo.
But you'll find, in all the New World Voodoo, there are, like in Haitian Voodoo, there's the saints as well. But it's not, from what I understand, it's not the same in terms of how we interact with them.
Okay.
So that's really not my area, so I don't really.
Yeah, I've always, all these, the books I have on Voodoo, I'm always going back to them and reading those little saint prayers all the time, over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And then I bought some little Catholic prayer books with the saint prayers in them. But I grew up in the South. Christianity was very painful. My dad was a preacher. He was crazy. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
But as far as, yeah, well, he went to some military school where they were all trying to, well, they were injecting rattlesnake venom into them to be immune to rattlesnakes. So just to give you an idea of the psychosis that I was spawned from.
Wow.
Capricorn,
That's
yay.
extreme, yep.
But so shamanism is definitely my preferred belief system. I find great peace and truth in it, and that's what I feel more comfortable with. And as far as where I'm at right now, it's all Baptist Republican. Vote Republican. Terrible. But America. Yeah. As far as the voodoo dolls are concerned, what are some of the items required? Is it expensive to make a voodoo doll? What are some of the main ingredients?
Oh, no, voodoo dolls can be made out of anything. I mean, really, you know, it can be made out of the most basic of things. You can go outside in your yard and you have everything you need to make a doll with, or even in your you can find stuff to, you know, make a doll with. Or you can get, you know, you get all the fancy stuff and make, you know, altar dolls, which is, you know, I do all the whole gamut. But yeah, I mean, you can make them out of anything.
Can you make one out of human flesh? Oh, sorry, just Halloween.
I suppose you could.
Yeah, probably not a good idea.
Personally, I would not.
So, like, someone wanted to purchase a Papa Lexa doll. How's the last? Is it Lexa or Lexa? If someone purchased or wanted to get one of those dolls, what would that be? Is that like an archetype for a specific reason, or would there be, you know, certain dolls that people would make for prosperity or love or health, or does one doll kind of universally represent them all, and it just depends on the prayer and intention that you use?
Yeah. There's dolls made for all kinds of purposes, and you know, again, you can have one general purpose doll to work with,
Okay.
or you can have dolls that are made especially for certain things.
Okay.
You know, a lot of people tend to not take doll magic seriously, and a lot of people will say that voodoo dolls are not part of the religion of voodoo. And, you know, for a lot of people, they're not. In New Orleans, we do have voodoo dolls, and certainly because we sell, so many are sold to the tourist trade, I'm sure that lends to the, you know, perception that it's not a serious thing. However, there is evidence in the literature and observations of people noting, seeing that a lot, you know, some of the slaves did come over with wooden fetishes from Africa that they brought with them for protection, and, you know, using them for defense as well. And, you know, when we look at, pardon me?
I was curious with your story earlier when you were a child and you carried that one doll with you till age 4. What did that represent to you? Was it a doll of protection? Of, you know, did that have a specific meaning, or was it just a general carry along? For me, it was just a doll of connection more than anything. Okay.
Yeah. You know, because I was so young, I didn't know how to do magic. You know, I mean, I had. Not in a formal way in terms of working with a doll. So it was just a connection, maybe even comfort, you know, item. And I think that, you know, that these kinds of fetishes and amulets and things that the slaves brought with them were also means of connection to, you know, the homeland, to culture that they were stolen from, and even and as such could be objects of comfort too. But, you know, in New Orleans, there were so many different cultures there, you know, European, you know, the Native American, and then the African.
Pot,
There was a big melting pot, but I think it's important to acknowledge that the fetishism that we see in New Orleans voodoo, which is manifests as the doll magic and the juju, that comes from Africa. Now, the different types of dolls that we have now, there's the gamut of them. Obviously, the poppets, that's a European influence. You know, they don't make those kinds of dolls in Africa. But there's the tins and things like that. Okay, so that's a common, you know, I think, picture of voodoo dolls. When you say voodoo doll, people look at, you know, think of a doll and pins. Well, there are fetishes in Africa called bokio that are activated by driving nails into them. And in my opinion, from the research I've done, that is where we have the origin of the pins. Because it wasn't always the pins. You know, it could have been like thorns from the honey locust tree, or you know, anything that was pointy, basically. But it was used in the same manner. When we stick a pin into a doll, it's to activate its power for whatever the purpose is. And that is a practice that is still found in Africa on the West Coast. And, you know, that's my theory, is that that is where that particular practice comes from. It's obviously changed and evolved since it's been here in you know, the United States. And then we have the other cultural influences. So, you know, it's definitely changed, but there are a lot of people who do work doll magic, and especially people who you know, practice hoodoo. There's probably more doll workers, I'm sure, that people who practice Conjure and hoodoo than the voodoo religion. In the voodoo religion, you'll see people have dolls that they're like altar dolls. So these are dolls that represent the spirits. They can also house spirits. So,
so the sticking,
you know,
of the
dolls
pins isn't necessary. The question I was going to ask is the sticking of the pins isn't necessarily an attack on someone. It's more to activate your intent of what you want to manifest.
Right.
So that's
exactly.
So we perceive the doll, you know, the pins sticking in the dolls as an aggressive attack upon an individual, but it's more in the perception of activating what your intent is, what you're trying to bring about.
Exactly. Exactly.
So like
and of course, it could be an attack. It could be an attack on a person, but you know, it doesn't have to be. I mean, it could be anything.
Okay, so it could be a benevolent intent instead of a malicious one.
Right, right. And in traditional African cultures, you know, the nails can activate an invocation, you know, drawing a spirit down into the fetish as well.
So like most people, they're looking for either, you know, health changes or prosperity changes or love changes. Those are the three most common things. So like if you wanted to improve your love life and you wanted to find a mate that was compatible to you, would you use a specific doll for that, or is it a specific prayer around a generic doll?
Well, all of the above are options. You know, you can
so one doll
create
can represent many attempts, then.
Right, right.
Okay.
And dolls can be reused. There's a lot of, you know, thought that, you know, once you use a doll, you got to get rid of it. You can only use it for one thing. But there are dolls that can be made that can, you know, that are reused for a particular purpose. So if you want to build on prosperity, you don't have to make one doll and do one spell and be done with that doll. That doll can be your prosperity doll, and you can continue to work that doll and keep that doll and, you know, grow your prosperity.
Do you use multiple pins on something like that? Like I said, the three most common things people are trying to improve in their lives are either their health, their financial prosperity, or love. You know, if people had all three of those things going great for them, they would have a really harmonious, happy life. But people always seem to be either they got a great love life, but their health is bad, or they got a great financial life, but their love life is bad. It seems like there's always one of those three areas that people are trying to bring into balance. So that's what I was saying, you know, like with someone's love life, they go, well, I've got a good job and my health is good, but I'm really lonely, and I would like to find somebody that's compatible with me so I don't keep repeating bad relationship mistakes, you know, because you can't force another person to love you. You want them to love you as you are. So So what would your advice on that simple theme be, you know? If I came to you and said I want to improve my love life.
Right, right. Well, you know, you can, in that case, what you could do would be to create 2 dolls, you know, one that would represent you and one that would represent your ideal lover. So you would want to create that doll that would represent, you know, all the things that you are looking for in a mate, in a partner. And you could, you know, there's so many you can make a doll. If you want to make them as a, you could make it as a puppet, or you could make it as a sticks and moss doll. It doesn't really matter. The important thing is your intention. You know, when you're making your intention into this doll, and in every part of the process of making it. You could.
That makes sense. You picture a couple as opposed to one individual. So trying to bring one thing to you, you picture it as a dual thing, mate type thing, where you use 2 dolls.
I'm sorry, you're cutting out. I'm sorry, you're cutting out a little bit.
A little low. You're a little low, Blaze.
Okay, is that better? I just adjusted the mic closer.
Yeah, that's better.
But yeah, so you're saying you use 2 dolls to represent a couple or a duality, one for you and one your ideal mate.
Well, if you're trying to draw another person to you, then you want to, you know, create a separate doll as a separate being, because that other person is going to be a separate being, right? So you create that separate doll to represent your ideal partner, and you know, there's things you can use to enhance. You want someone who, so your ideal partner is going to be someone who likes sex as much as you do. So you could anoint it with a particular type of oil, like All Night Long. There's an oil that can be made that, you know, basically, you know, is a type of hoodoo oil, conjure oil that promotes long, enjoyable sex all the time. So,
so would you put that on both dolls then, or just the one that you're trying to bring towards you? Okay, so you'd use that as a mutual desire.
Yeah, you'd want it to be a mutual thing.
Right, mutual desire. Okay.
So, yeah, so you would, you know, you could anoint it with All Night Long, or if you want something more, like more friendship and love kind of thing, and not as much sex, although there's that too. Then there's like an oil called chuparosa, which is a hummingbird in Spanish. That's another one. You could use that kind of oil or powder. You can put the powder inside the dolls. You know, you can put certain herbs inside the dolls that have the qualities of what you want. So, you know, love, you can use damiana, you know, herb, or any number of things you can use to stuff the doll with. And
okay, so does the oil act as like a pen where it activates it? Is that the symbolic part of it, or do you still use pens along with that?
No, you don't need to use pens. You can. I mean, that's a total individual thing, you know. I think, but the herbs that you use, the things that you use to stuff it with, or to, you know, mix with, if you wanted to make a wax doll, you could mix the oil with the wax, or if you're using clay, you can mix the oil with the clay. So you create the dolls, you know, using the different herbs like rose or cinnamon, because cinnamon heats things up. Patchouli is a very common herb that's used to draw love. Musk, of course, things like that. So then, so then you want to make the 2 dolls, and then you can put them face to face.
Okay.
And you can either tie them together, so you're like binding yourself to this this love draw that you're.
I used to do this with my G.I. Joe figure. I used to do this with G.I. Joe figure.
Your G.I. Joe figures aren't those all-male military ones?
They were chicks.
No wonder it doesn't work for you, Jeffrey.
You put them together with a string and pour oil on them.
So do you write, I mean, do you write like on a piece of paper, do you place this on your altar? Okay, so you do you use the oils or the wax? And I see all the symbolicism that you're describing. Do you write down the qualities that you want, or is it all done mentally, thinking, or is there a way? Because they say a lot of times when you're trying to draw something from the spirit world into the physical world, you write it down. You know, I want to manifest, you know, a girl that looks like this.
You can. That's something that a lot of people do. They write it down, and you can, you know, put it inside the doll or attach it to the doll. That's another way of using pins.
Okay. That makes sense.
Is to attach the petition to the doll. And then, like I said, you know, taking the pins, you can attach the two dolls together with the pins. And, you know, you want to have, like, red tips on the pins because of color symbolism. Red is love. You can attach them through the heart. So, you know, you want to pin the doll together through but you're drawing love to you.
Okay.
And then you can also, place them on top of a talisman that's a love talisman, or you can place them on top of a bed of herbs, or, writing down another petition in terms of, so one way you could do it is you have a petition that you attach to each doll that describes the different characteristics of the person. And you attach that to the doll, and then you could have another petition that you write in terms of what you want the relationship to be like, and you lay the dolls down as they're attached together on top of that other petition. It just depends. Some people get more complex with it, because it's just like individuals. Different people need different levels of ritual. But, voodoo and hoodoo are really not that complex in the grand scheme of things when you compare it to other magical systems. It's pretty straightforward, and the level of complexity, I think, really reflects that individual workers' need for ritual. Some people need more of it to make it seem more meaningful to them, or they need to do more to manifest more. And there's no, right or wrong way in terms of that. It's just an individual thing. Personally, I would take a petition and I would either put it inside the dolls and attach the dolls together and then lay them on a bed of love herbs and make a little altar and surround it with lots of really loving things, flowers, and, burn some candles around it and just treat it like a very sacred union, because that's what I want to draw to me. So I would, that's what I would do. And the more energy you put into that, the more of that energy in the world you're going to draw to yourself. Because that's
I was going to ask how long you focus your intention on it, because is that something you do twice a day or once a week, or how long does a person focus on the ritual? That you're saying that's kind of up to the individual?
Yeah, it really depends on the person's level of commitment and how bad they want something. Also, the design of the spell. Some spells are designed to be done once. You make this and you do this, and then you set this bed up for these dolls, and then you put them away somewhere safe. Other people will continue to work with the dolls on a daily basis. Say a prayer, light a candle, and then weekly re-anoint them with the oils or powders, and keep doing that until their desired effect comes about. A lot of the spells in hoodoo are designed to be done in 3, 7, or 9 days, or 13 in extreme cases. And so, each day a prayer is said and a a particular action is done. Usually it's, lighting a candle and focusing your intention in some way. And then after that prescribed period of time, the items are disposed of in a ritualistic manner, and then you leave the rest up to the universe, for it to manifest. Usually you're going to see results, if it's effective, you're going to see results within a month or so. A lot of times it can be immediate. Yeah, a lot of times it can be immediate. Sometimes people see results as they're doing the spell, and I always tell them, don't stop. Finish going through the spell. And then a lot of times people don't see it right away. They think it's failed. And so they go back to the self-defeating thought process of, well, this doesn't work. I'm never going to get anybody. And that thought process is what makes it not work.
Yeah, I was wondering, because they say if you obsess about something or you have repetitive doubts, it kind of kills the intention of what you originally wanted.
Right. You just interrupted that whole energy that you've tried to build. So it's real important to watch how you think and to watch what you say. There's a lot of magic in words in everyday speech. People don't. The word is not held sacred anymore. It really isn't in everyday speech. And
I believe that. Yeah, I think I see that a lot. Where I always say that the word love has been overused so much that people love pizza, they love video games, they love this TV show, but it's become devalued. I love hamburgers, and so
right.
I always refer back to the Hawaiian huna meaning of love, which is to be happy with or to joyously share life energy in the present moment. That kind of helps me
right.
reestablish what a loving relationship is in my life, and
right.
That's a good example where words have been devalued just by repetition and overuse in proper areas.
Right.
I love Huna. We've had Serge Kahali King on, interviewed him a few times, Serge King on Huna. That was one of his interviews. I got struck by lightning through the phone, and it scared me to death. And he goes, "That's a sign of great power."
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I got zapped while talking to a shaman. That was pretty excellent. Besides it scaring the living crap out of me.
Oh yeah, no, I had to re-edit that show because there was crackle on it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna go on break in a minute. I'm waiting to see where Joe is. Joe, man beast, where are you? When we come back from the break, we have a Mark Eddy question, and his question, just so you can think about it while we're on break. If one realizes he has a voodoo curse on him, how does one get rid of the curse? And we can come back with that on the break. And also I want to get into some of the darker aspects of voodoo. Like there are some pretty wild things in here, like how to kill a woman doll and disease doll to make the person sick. I'm kind of curious if there's levels to like a voodoo. Is like, are there evil voodoo people, like there are evil shamans, or just get into that topic a bit. But another question Mark Eddy asked, which you don't have to answer unless you just want to, but it's pretty funny and cracked me up. He's always giving me funny questions and cracking me up during the show. But one question he asked, which I'm not expecting you to answer this, but he goes, how accurate was the voodoo practice in the zombie episode of Call Check, the Night Stalker?
In what?
Yeah, one of his questions was, how accurate was the voodoo practiced in the zombie episode of Call Check, the Night Stalker?
About as accurate as 1972.
Yeah. That question, though, just cracked me up.
Yeah, that was the original X-Files, that show. That was great.
All right, well, we're about to go on break for about 8 minutes. What is your website address before we go on break, Denise?
CreoleMoon.com and also RitualWitch.com.
All righty. All right, well, we're going to go on break for about 8 minutes. We'll be back. You're listening to Church of Mabus Radio.
Whoa! Did you hear?
Listen to the Church of Mabus radio show, hosted by Jeffrey Pritchett.
7
p.m. Eastern, Friday nights. Follow your weird and journey into the high strange. be sure to stop by www.churchofmabusradio.com for upcoming shows, paranormal news, and show archives. That's www.churchofmabusradio.com.
Welcome back to the Church of Mabus radio show. Let me think, who's coming on next week? Okay, let me look that up real quick. Make sure I say her name correctly. It's Bad Astrology. Of course, I just opened up the wrong folder, like I always do. Let me see. I know her name. I just want to make sure I say her last name correctly. Sarah Christensen Fu. I'll have to ask her about that Fu for sure. And then October 17th is Dennis Waller on Alaskan Bigfoot. And then, let me see. All right, and let's see. One question I have before we get to the curse question. Denise, what's the view on marijuana with voodoo? Is that used in any of the practices or anything? What's the general perception on that?
Has nothing to do with their religion. So if anybody smokes pot, that's their own deal.
There's no 420 voodoo then, huh?
No, there's no official stance on that, other than it's not part of the religion. So
don't believe in any of the deities.
No.
It's not gonna bribe them at all, huh?
No. Well, okay. Well, Mark's question was: if one realizes he has a voodoo curse on him, how does one get rid of the curse?
Well, that's a big subject, and that's something a lot of people are concerned about. First off, I would encourage anyone who believes they have a curse to get a reading done by a reputable worker. I am not one of the people who subscribe to the curse perspective. I think probably 98% of people who believe they are cursed are not cursed and are simply experiencing life in a way that has been influenced by all kinds of different factors. It has nothing to do with the supernatural, somebody throwing down on them or anything.
It's more of a
I
blame
think that
game.
the way we think about things, like we were talking about before we went to break, in terms of love and just attracting, energy, and then the way we think can just totally change that energy. Simple psychology in terms of self-defeating thoughts and behaviors, that's where we need to start. Beyond all that, if you, believe you're cursed, to get rid of a curse requires what we call it crossing, being crossed. And so, the obvious way to get rid of being crossed is to be uncrossed. And to do that, we usually start with a spiritual bath. That's usually the place where we start with many works. Because what that does is, it washes you clean, literally and figuratively, of stagnant energies. It helps to get rid of obstacles, and it can help you change the way you think about things, the way you feel about things. Again, there's that ritual that helps put activities and helps put meaning to different activities. A lot of times, we're just ritualistic people. But taking a spiritual bath for a prescribed number of days is usually where it starts. Doing a thorough house cleansing, both on a physical, mundane level as well as a spiritual level, is necessary. And then once that is done, those two things are done, where you have cleansed yourself and you've cleansed your home, then you want to put some protections in place. This is all very general because I'd have to talk to a person to find out what their particular situation is. Often it takes a series of spiritual baths to be uncrossed. If it's somebody, if you had a reading done and you know for sure that it's the result of somebody, putting a curse on you, then you're going to want to, there's several different ways of dealing with that. One way is to send it back to them. Another way is to, bind them so that they can't do that anymore towards you. Another way is, there's levels of dealing with things and people. But you want to stop that from happening. You want to stop the negative energy from coming to you. And then you want to cleanse yourself of what has been sent to you and what you've taken on. And then you want to do like what's called a road opener, so that whatever's been blocking success and happiness and all of these things, you open those roads so that you can receive happiness and joy and success and love and all of those things. So it's a process. It's not, there's not a one easy fix or cure-all, and it should be tailored to the individual.
So again, it sounds like, again, thought is the process, like what you think about most is what you bring about. So even though you may have a positive intention about something, if your day-to-day and moment-to-moment thought is negative, you're canceling out that. So that's what I've read about. So I've read that about curses too, and like shamanism, that's an interest that Jeffrey and I both have, is that it teaches you that curses really have no effect on you if your thinking is strong within yourself, and that you can also, instead of sending it back to the sender, that's kind of practicing a reverse black magic or dark magic. But if you learn to take an energy that's negative that's being sent to you and you reharmonize it, basically you just wear the other person out, because all you're doing is making that energy beneficial to you instead of taking an adversarial approach towards it.
Right. And part of my spiritual path, a big part of my spiritual path, I'm a medicine woman, so I'm familiar with shamanic techniques and whatnot. And from that perspective, you're right. We look at taking, the evil in itself is just energy in need of transformation. Okay. It's energy. So, and one of the things that I was always taught was that you welcome your enemy, and that if you are crossed, or if evil has come to your doorstep, that you must be a worthy opponent, and so you welcome it, and you embrace it, and you work with it to change it. But that's advanced stuff. That's not something that your normal person's gonna understand right off the bat. That's a process of getting to that understanding.
Yeah, we live in a fear-based society. There's so much that fear comes first before understanding, and that's where a lot of our conflict arises from, is people operate from being fearful of things, and which puts them on the defensive. I always see where so many people are looking to be offended, where there's really never an intention for that. A lot of times people are just looking to be defensive about something, and that's an exhausting way to live life.
It really is. It really is. But
well, look at the way life is. I mean, it's, of course we try to strive not to be fearful, but in this world it doesn't seem easy. I mean, just yesterday with the Ebola thing, I had a panic attack.
Well, yeah.
It's scary. I mean, things that's hit us in a while. It's pretty scary.
And the media plays into that. The media loves that kind of stuff. Society. I mean, you're right. I mean, we're a fear-based society. The Western-based religion's a fear-based religion. That's so contrary to my native teachings and voodoo. I mean, we've got loving spirits who care for us and take care of us, and You know, we don't need to be afraid.
Right, the whole ancestral spirit thing. If you tap into that and
Yeah.
fear, then you
Laugh
realize
at what
you've
you
got so
fear.
much.
That's what the shaman does. One thing that made me laugh about the Ebola thing, I'm going to be blunt here for a second. There was a South Park episode that was basically about gluten, but it was really about Ebola. But if you got infected, your penis would fly off. it was so childish, but it was so funny.
But I've seen so much stuff about Ebola. Did you see the zombie? The zombie Ebola?
Yeah.
What the heck is that? I didn't get a chance to look into all that, but it came up on my news feed. I'm like, oh my Buddha! If anybody saw that, okay. So they said like 10 days, like doctors saw people die, and 10 days later they come back up to and they look like their flesh is falling off their skin and up their bones and.
Yeah, I keep up with a lot of those stories because I work at the unexplained section at Before It's News, so I repost a lot of stuff and write articles, but anything that gets a lot of hits. But the Africans are releasing these stories from their newspapers about people rising from
I'm not
the dead.
hearing anything. You're cutting out.
Oh, I was just saying the African newspapers are releasing stories like that lately.
Oh.
In a lot of droves, and I doubt they're true, but these are also the same people that burn people at the stake still for being cat shapeshifters at night. So
right.
You know.
Right.
But
I always like to tell people that I like to use the acronym for FEAR, which is false evidence appearing real.
I'm sorry, I'm getting nothing but dead space, so if I'm not hearing y'all.
All right, can you hear me now?
No.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you,
now.
Jeffrey.
I'm not sure what's going on. I hear everybody okay on my end. I don't. Not sure what it is. Can you hear us okay? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I mean, you're cutting in and out, but yeah, I heard you then.
It may be because I'm on a cordless phone and it's raining here, but everything's coming across on mine. Let's, we don't have too much longer left. Let's get to my next question, which was, I'm kind of curious, are there considered evil voodoo doctors, or, you know, compared to like good and evil, like shamans have brujas that are supposedly evil? But I'm kind of looking at, you know, some of these spells in here, they're definitely some pretty dark stuff as far as disease doll to make a person sick, and New Orleans coffin spell to kill a woman. I have to use that one. I'm just kidding. But nonetheless, I'm just kind of curious, is in voodoo, is there such a thing as going to the dark side?
I only heard part of that question, but I'm assuming you're asking about the cursing and the death conjure and the darker aspects of Hoodoo.
Yes.
And voodoo. The priests who practice both right and left-handed magic are referred to as Bokor in voodoo. And in Hoodoo, that's the two-headed doctors. To me, any root worker worth their weight in gold knows both hands, because how are you going to deal with somebody who's been cursed if you don't know that whole system? You're not going to be able to fight your enemy if you don't know it. So, and in Hoodoo, it's a very different kind of Hoodoo is different from voodoo, let me just say that, in that there's not the pantheon of spirits. There's not a religious element. It's just the magic. It's the working roots for healing or for manipulating life circumstances and conditions and people and that kind of thing to a desired outcome. So, yeah, anybody who's a very good practitioner is going to know, at least to some extent, both sides of the coin. I have delved extensively into both sides of the coin. I just find it fascinating. But yeah, there's death conjure, and we have to look at it in terms of historical perspective as well, because slaves were treated horribly. Come on, and they used their system that they knew, and it evolved, but as they knew it, for protection and defense. And there's even cases on records of them using gree-gree, which is a separate magical system, but to poison masters, slave masters, and that's something that is part of the indigenous system. And so that it still persists as part of the system. And some people, choose to activate it, and some don't. But like I said, I think anybody who works roots needs to know both aspects of it in order to be effective at what they do. Hoodoo is not a kumbaya type of tradition at all. It's a very realistic tradition that reflects humanity. People have a shadow side. There is no just light, la, 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 because that's not people. People are very complex. They have very different levels of psychology and feelings and behavior and actions. People are capable of doing horrible things to each other, and Hoodoo embraces that, and Hoodoo recognizes that. And so the magic system reflects humanity, and all of our possibilities, all of our limitations, all of our potentials, good and bad, good and evil.
So voodoo is more religious or spiritually oriented? Is that what you're saying? It's more...
Voodoo? Yeah, voodoo is a religion. Hoodoo is the magic, without the religious aspects.
Oh, that makes
In
sense.
New Orleans voodoo, there's a lot of combination. A lot of New Orleans voodooists also practice hoodoo. In New Orleans, it didn't separate like in other areas of the country so much. Kind of all melded together for a lot of people.
Blaze, you want to ask your hoodoo-voodoo question?
Yeah, she just answered it, what the difference between the two is. I was curious why there was a difference between the two, and the hoodoo is just the mechanical magic of it that gets more down to the practical application, where the voodoo involves more of the religious, spiritual aspects of it. So,
and working with the spirits. Mm-hmm.
Right. So like Wicca, Wiccans, they also practice, where magic is just energy. It can be positive or negative, whichever way you decide to use it. So if a person like trying to put a curse on someone, do they learn how to do it where it doesn't come back upon them personally? Is that how it's worked? Or because usually whatever goes around comes around, right? So if you're putting out a curse on someone, or you want someone to have a bad time, is by doing that you bring it upon yourself, or is there a way to protect yourself to divert that?
Oh, yeah. Well, see, that's the thing, too. It's a whole different philosophy. In Hoodoo, we don't really look at it in terms of, like, karma and that kind of thing. We believe in justified action. And there are people who do unacceptable things who, from the Hoodoo perspective, are deserving of justified consequences that are imposed upon by the person who has been done wrong to. And that's part of achieving the balance, because when another person does something bad to another person, that's putting the whole relationship out of balance. And so as a root worker, you can force that back into balance by creating, focusing energy to level the playing field, so to speak. When you do work into that, in that mode, although a lot of people say there is no karma and you don't believe in that in Hoodoo, there is a bit of, that's a naive statement, because there is a recognition that obviously there's consequences for any behavior that you do, and there's consequences for any magic that you put out there, positive or negative. And so, and that's evidenced by any root worker who's reputable will always say if they're going to do something like that, then they always put protections in place, and that's because we believe that, yes, it can come back to us, particularly if it's not justified. There can be a backlash. So you always want to you always want to protect yourself, and that's part of doing any kind of work like that is putting protections in place, and also doing a cleansing after any time you would put, throw down on somebody is what we call it, crossing somebody, throw down on somebody. You always do a cleansing after that, just in case.
Yeah, because you're acting as the hand of justice in a way. If you're trying to right a wrong, then yeah, you're trying to step in and correct the balance. Yeah. I always say that people are always looking for balance, and that makes sense in that word. Where if there's something that happened that was negative, and you want to try to bring justice or bring it back into favor of the good, then that happening.
Now there are people who just want to do nasty stuff to each other. So. Hoodoo's got some pretty serious works, as you can see in the book that I've described. Lots of works in there. I've done 2 videos, too, for the Mississippi Death Conjure. That's on YouTube. You can just look it up, keywords, Mississippi Death Conjure. It's the ant bed spell. And it's a really neat spell. It can be done under the classification of death conjure, but as you know, death can be viewed in different ways too. You might want to end a bad habit, so that can be, you can use a death conjure work on that. You can do that to end a bad relationship. It doesn't have to be the actual physical death of a person, although that can be it also if that's your intention. But these spells are very, very powerful, and they're very effective at ending things or transforming things from, changing one thing into another.
Yeah, I was talking to a person that said, they had these spirit guides, and these spirit guides were advising them to get involved in these horrible relationships that created a lot of abuse, and I was saying, well, maybe you need to double check who your spirit guides were, because most of your best information comes from within yourself. And so I wonder, are there often times where people are fooled by something that maybe appear to be something spiritually beneficial, but they lead us into bad situation or bad relationships just to enjoy the amusement of it? I'm curious about that.
Yeah. Well, sure. Especially when you don't really know what you're doing, if you start delving into things like graveyard work, for example, which is a core activity for any hoodoo, and voodoo, as a matter of fact. There's all kinds of activities that we can do in the graveyard, from love to, to death conjure. So, to this reverence of ancestors. So it runs a whole gamut of things. But the thing is, that whole realm, that whole physical and spiritual realm, is a hotbed of activity. And it's like all the horror stories you hear about people from playing a Ouija board. They think it's a game. They don't understand that they open up a door, and then they don't ever close the damn thing, and they don't put any filters in place, and then they wonder why there's all these problems that are coming up afterwards. Well, the same thing when you work in a graveyard. You're walking into somebody else's world, You
just described my life, I think.
There's people there, from rapists to murderers to innocent young children to old grandmas, And so you don't want those entities to attach themselves to you, or those spirits of those people to attach themselves to you. And so there's things that need to be done to protect yourself from that when you go and do graveyard work. One simple thing.
One thing can you hear me okay now? Am I coming across?
Yeah. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Is it Jack Nicholson crystal clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, one thing I think, when I start to see UFO stuff, I think spirits took notice and thought like that I was special or something, or that I knew something that was important. And I think I do have some spirit harassment. But one question I wanted to ask you, and we talked about this in the written interview, I've had a radio show host make up terrible lies about me that are completely unfounded, completely untrue and vicious. And I asked you about, you know, it was definitely a lie that would just to tarnish my name, just to make up something, and it's almost demonic on some level that this person would even say this thing, but what they said. But you spoke about a shut the hell up spell. What is that exactly? And what are some things you can do about somebody that's just completely vicious like that?
Boy, you know, I've experienced that too, and so I can really relate to you. And so much damage can be done with the words people speak about you. Your reputation can just be, you know, horribly affected by frivolous words and malicious words that people speak about you. And being, you know, in the public eye, you're a target for that, just by virtue of visibility. And competitors will do that. Competitors and just sick individuals. So, but we've got some, you know, classic works in Hoodoo that take care of people like that, and what I call shut the hell up. Papa Boca, basically it's stop gossip spells. That's part of it, and then the other part of it, depending on how bad they are, you want to, you know, well, let's see, I don't want to, you want to stop them. So you want to stop them from speaking the crap that they're speaking about you, and then you want to bind them from doing anything further, whether it be, you know, going on a little scam sites and, you know, typing in their little, you know, horrible gossip stuff and that can't be removed. And so you want to do a stop gossip. Now here's some great stuff. And you can get this at ritualwitch.com, and we're the only place that carries this. It's dried beef tongue.
Nice.
There's a classic beef tongue spell that most people don't do because it's pretty disgusting if you're not used to this kind of work, where you actually take a cow tongue and you slit it open and you fill it with like cayenne pepper and black pepper and maybe sulfur and some other things that are hot and that burn, because you want that person to stop talking. And then you write your petition, which would be the person's name, and then you basically write, you know, John Doe, you need to shut the hell up. Stop talking about me, blah, whatever it is that you want to write. You stick that petition into the tongue, and then you sew the tongue up with black thread, and then you wrap it around real tightly with the thread, and then you can either put that tongue in the freezer or bury it somewhere or hang it from a tree. But like I said, that's really messy. So we started carrying the dried beef tongue. We dehydrate it. And then we've got different versions of this shut the hell up thing. And we've got oils and powders of the shut the hell up too. And you can take and make a doll. And this is a version of that. You take and make a doll, a poppet. You stuff it with Spanish moss, some like double shoestring, some patchouli, mullein, and then you want to get some of this dried beef tongue and stuff the head with this dried beef tongue. Sew the doll up. Sew the mouth symbolically with like 3 X's where the mouth would be on the doll. Take this doll, and you want to make the doll out of black fabric. And then you take this doll, and you put it in a jar, like whatever kind of jar you can find that's big enough that'll fit your doll. And then you can do a couple of things with it. One thing that you can do is to piss in the jar. So you're peeing on this enemy. And fill it up with vinegar. If you can't pee enough to fill the whole thing up, or if you're not into peeing on somebody, but that's a big hoodoo thing too. You can just use the vinegar, because the vinegar or ammonia are 2 substitutions for urine. Vinegar would be a better one for this particular situation. Fill it up screw the top on real good, and then you go and bury that sucker in a graveyard. And what that does is you're sewing their mouth shut. You're using that tongue as a symbolic, connection of speech, but you're stopping them. You're souring their behavior by keeping it encased in the vinegar or the urine, whatever you choose to do, and then you're burying it. So the other version of that would be, instead of using vinegar, would be to distill it with water and stick it in your freezer and just freeze them so that they can't talk anymore and they can't move anymore. I particularly don't like having an enemy in my freezer. A lot of people do that, and that's just a personal preference. If I'm doing a work on an enemy, I don't want any. Once I'm done, it needs to go.
Out of the house.
Out of the house, out of my sight, because I don't want to, every time I open up the freezer to get me some ice cream or some ice from a tea or something, I don't want to see so-and-so's face, or the dog.
That's very strong.
Or whatever.
I have a story. I have a story that I have to tell. One of the first spells I ever did, and I'm not a person that does spells a lot. I've done some of them, but when I was in high school, I did a spell, and it was from the Raymond Buckland's. It was a witchcraft book, a big blue witchcraft book.
Yeah.
And I did it from that, and it involved. Well, first off, let me tell the story. I was like 9th grade. There was a bully who I'd known since kindergarten, and one day he decided to turn on me, started calling me fat, told me if I didn't meet him at a specific place, he would jump me, and he had pictures of Hitler in his locker, and he was picking on me quite profusely, and I finally went to that place to fight him, and it was like this construction site, and he was banging dirt rocks on his head, and I'm not the type of person to fight. I hate fighting. I haven't been in a fight since high school, like a physical fight. I've been in verbal fights, of course, all the time, but I haven't been in a physical fight since high school. But anyway, I went there, and we beat the crap out of each other, and the police came. But before that happened, he was harassing me every day, and I did a spell out of that book. It was the first spell I ever did. You put a bunch of nails and razors in a jar, a glass jar, and you peed in it, and you bury it. And I did that to protect myself from him, and at that fight, he actually bit a small piece of my nipple off. This was 9th grade. And anyway, several weeks passed, and during that time, he fell through a plate glass window. He got arrested. He knocked a girl up. His car spun out, and he got in a wreck. I found out later that possibly my dad said that he took the lug nuts off his car, but I don't know if that's true. My dad's passed away, and he was like Tony Soprano crazy.
Use a Frank's box. I will not use.
That spell protected me from him, and that guy came to my work and asked for forgiveness. And that was the first spell I ever did was a pee in a jar spell. Like, how are you?
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, how empowering is that,
I wonder if that jar's still buried in that yard in Georgia when I was a kid, behind the shed. I think it might be. Because I've had some other weird stories like that. But yeah,
that's buried in your yard.
You brought up that spell when you were talking about pee in jars and nails and stuff. And plus, how often on the show do we get to talk about peeing in jars so openly? Never.
Well, it's very strong symbology because vinegar is sharp on the senses, and that combined with the urine, it's all very strong symbology to make an impact, like you've really dealt with it on a spiritual and energy level, so that you can go about your day not being worried about being defensive about it, because you've already taken care of it through all the symbology. Especially burying it in the graveyard, it's like the old saying, you're dead to me. It's easier to pretend someone's dead instead of freak out every minute of what they're doing or thinking about you. If you just pretend that situation is dead, it's easier for you to go about your day-to-day business.
And sometimes, if somebody's really, really upset you, and doing just one ritual is not going to be enough, that you just really, really pissed off, sometimes it's good to take that doll and abuse it for a few days before you actually stick it in a jar and piss on it.
Okay.
I mean, really, because...
Wow!
You keep it around. Exactly. And that's, you keep it around, you can kick it around, you can throw it, against the wall, you can step on it, you can curse at it, you can keep it in the corner, you can throw it on your dog's shit, you can do whatever you can abuse the hell out of it for a few days till you get it out of your system, till you're at the point where, okay, I'm done doing this. Now I'm putting you in the damn jar, I'm going to piss on you, and I'm going to bury you in that graveyard, and I don't want to hear from you again.
Man, this is awesome. We've made the dolls make love, and now they're like moshing in the apocalypse.
Yeah,
exactly.
there you go.
That's what's so awesome about doll magic, and that's why it has been used. It's a form of magic. Image magic has been a form of magic that's been used for thousands of years. I mean, we find them with the Greeks, with the curse tablets. People have used dolls for love, for business, for cursing, for years across cultures. We find it. So it's not just a voodoo thing. It's a people thing.
What's the Native American thing with doll? What were they into?
Very similar. Mostly we find fertility. So there's dolls that are made for fertility of the earth, so abundant crops, that kind of thing, and then of course for puberty, and then fertility of the person. But there's also the enemies, where a doll can be made to resemble an enemy and buried somewhere, where the person will walk over it, and so it's kind of like a form of foot track magic, which is a hoodoo type of magic. But a similar practice, like I said, can be found with Indians too, different tribes, where an enemy can be buried in somewhere where the doll's cursed. Bury the doll somewhere where the person's going to walk over it, and so by the principle of contagious magic, if you walk over something or touch something that has been cursed or affected magically, then you're going to get that effect. So if you touch that or walk where that person, that cursed object is, and you're going to pick up that curse, is the belief. So yeah, I mean, again, these are human problems and human solutions. It doesn't matter where you are, what color you are, what race you're from, or culture you're from. These are just human conditions, anger, wanting babies, wanting love, wanting to be successful. Doesn't matter where you're from. This is a human condition, human desires, human needs and wants, and people have used dolls to deal with these things for thousands of years. They're awesome.
Are moon phases used in these rituals? Like the Wiccans and Druids practiced full moon and new moon rituals, like
blood moon. It's the blood moon.
Yeah.
Next week.
Yeah.
They can be. They can be. Not just moon phases, but also time of day. For example, if you're looking to get rid of something, then you're going to want to look at doing something after 12 noon.
And the day is waning. Okay.
Right, the time is waning. You can look at doing to enhance a work like that, like the person asked about being uncrossed or dealing with a curse. If you want to be uncursed, uncrossed, you can look at doing your spiritual bath at a time when the time of day is waning, so after noon or after dusk.
Right.
And,
right before dusk or something.
Yeah. Yeah. And during the waning moon. So you have
it
two
uses
different...
the light symbology then of fading into brightness or fading into darkness is effective too.
Correct.
Okay.
And the opposite, so if you want to draw something to you, if you want to draw love or you want to draw money, then you would do it during the time when the moon is waxing or full, and
Right.
during the time of day when the day is growing in daylight.
Dawn. So get up at dawn and wish for your love and keep hoping until noon.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
So yeah, but it's not. But the thing with hoodoo is that it's not. It doesn't have to be done like that. Now, if you have the luxury of planning something, then yeah. But hoodoo is if you need something done, you need something done today and now, then you can do it anytime.
So there's no
If
limit
you're
really
still,
on it.
and you've got your intention, focus, you can do it anytime because it's a very practical system of magic. So it can be done anytime. If you have the luxury and you don't want to wait, then you can. If you have the luxury and you do, and you're willing to wait, then you can work with the different times of days and the time of the moon phases.
Okay, that makes sense.
Well,
and the same thing when creating a doll too. You can create a doll at the same times to enhance its power.
Okay, when you're actually making the doll. Okay.
Right.
For whatever
Denise,
reason.
I'm looking at your website. Do you sell them at this Ritual Witch, or is there another place?
CreoleMoon.com is where my dolls are.
Okay. CreoleMoon.com. I'll have to check those. I like the. Do you have any of the little skull ones for sale still?
I can make you one.
Yeah, I might have to get with you on that. I'll have to drop you a message about it.
What about like prosperity? Because a lot of people are trying to find financial prosperity these days, where they just want consistent, regular income. They're tired of struggling. A lot of friends that are just, they're trying to make ends meet, and then they'll have a couple bad things that happen to them, and so it makes a difficult financial situation worse. So, what would be a good prosperity one?
Well, you can make a prosperity doll. I've got several in the book for how to make those. A simple one would be to make a poppet out of green fabric or gold, because green and gold are colors of abundance, and then you could fill it with different herbs that are prosperity drawing herbs: basil, Solomon seal, mint, patchouli, and you could put like a lodestone in there because that's a drawing mineral. You could draw a seal, one of the seals for prosperity. Stick that in there, write your petition, stick it all in the doll, stuff the doll, and make its little face. You want to make it happy, and then you can also attach talismans to the outside of the doll. Gold coins, whatever, money,
Yeah,
you can attach a dollar bill.
I've met very few people that say, I have so much cash, I don't know what to do with it. So, that's what I think a lot of people are trying to get to is a point of, they say people try to make ends meet, and that all prosperity is when ends overlap, so that you're not having a gap in between this bill or that bill or this repair and that repair.
Right. So you want to make your doll to be a prosperity doll, and I would encourage people to have a bowl that is your prosperity bowl where you throw your change in. So from every day.
Cool.
You have your prosperity bowl, and you start growing your change in your bowl, and you keep that doll on top of that bowl. So he's a guardian of your prosperity, and you want to take care of him. You want to talk to him. You want to be friends with him. You want to treat him well because you want to treat your money well. You want your money to grow. You don't want to curse at it and be pissed off at it.
Right.
You want to feed it.
Yeah, it's like some people say, I want to make easy money, and I was thinking the other day, easy money always is kind of an illusion, but I'd like to make my money at ease. That would be nice, where I'm attracting good quality customers and having good quality experiences with the exchange of service and money. And I like to get to that point where I'm making money at ease, because I know that easy money is kind of an illusion. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. I've had a few experiences where I've had difficult customers, and one of it happened to do with a death in the family, and so the communication with that customer just got very difficult. They bounced a check, and I was trying to be sensitive about the subject, but when all of a sudden your bank account goes into havoc because somebody wrote you a bad check, well, you can't be really stern with somebody that just experienced a death in the family. And so I was curious, like, is there a way to draw, quality customers that are like me and have the same respect towards money making and service and all that? Because you run into bad customers where it's miserable making money through them because they're just difficult to deal with. So those are all things I'm curious about.
Yeah, I don't know if you have my other book, the Hoodoo Spellbook, but I've got quite a few works in there that are for drawing business too.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that. I'm like Jeffrey, I've studied mostly shamanism and stuff, but I'd be curious to see the beneficial things because you build up your.
There's floor washes. There's floor washes that are done routinely in Hoodoo that are designed to draw good-paying customers.
Oh, awesome. That'd be great.
Yeah, yeah. And
all right. Well,
go ahead.
We gotta end this puppy, this bad puppy.
End of the program time.
I've really enjoyed it, Denise. It's been great. I love the subject matter, and it's been great learning more about it from you. Definitely, I dig it. Great way to usher in October, our first October show.
Yes, much gratitude
thank you for having me
time
on.
And knowledge. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll have to check out your other book. I just have the Voodoo Doll book and the spell book. I'll have to check out your other book for sure. And what are your website links again?
Websites.
My websites, CreoleMoon.com and RitualWitch.com is with my good friend and business partner, Madrina Angelique, and CrossroadsUniversity.com for people who are interested in learning on a formal basis about Southern rootwork and conjure, and I do offer a doll baby conjure class. So, yeah, those are my three main ones.
All righty. Well, everybody, thanks for listening to the Church of Mabus radio show. We'll be back next week with Beazle will be back with bad astrology, and basically that's smart-ass astrology. So everybody have a good weekend, and thanks for listening. Good night.